Audio. There we go. There's the audio. So moving on in here. It's nice and smooth. Seems to be in sync with the Google Earth. It looks really good. Going in here really smooth, looking around. Oop, we're at the fall line right here. And we got a head, we got an arm. Looks like a head, an arm. Elbow right there. This is the torso. This would be the right arm. Here's another thing. It looks like a hand, an arm, and elbow. The guy's got his snowboard or a ski right there. Or it's one of those split skis. This looks like a skull with eyes. The reason it's so enlarged is because the heat waves cause things to magnify in micro areas. And an instantaneous undulation of the heat wave can actually cause a magnification of up to 10 to 20 times. I've experienced that with videos, and here's something right here. It looks suspicious. You can see this stuff. That doesn't look like rocks. It looks like body fragments. These gullies is where it thaws out. Right here we got a head. We got like an arm, some type of body part sticking out right there. And it's covered in this mud and silt. Yeah, there's something else right there. Doesn't look like a rock, and you can see the shadow. So we got a hand, we got a head. Yeah, this looks like the kind of an ass end right there. You can see the bare ass cheeks. There's a leg, another leg. Looks like the leg got ripped off. Shoulder blades. Head would be up here just completely covered in the mud and the silt. And you can see where the body, when the sun's shining on it, will be a little bit hotter than surrounding soils. And you can see where it's separating away from the frozen soil and mud. Yeah, and here's another one where you got two parallel lines that are legs. You know, people have been climbing this for 120 years, 150 years, and you know, before there were cell phones, before there was accurate weather forecasting, and even today, people don't understand the sublimation factor that fog brings with it. 32 degrees. You could be mountain climbing in your t-shirt in 50 degrees. When the fog comes in, it basically turns this ice and snow into fog and becomes 32 degrees, and that ends up causing people to have hypothermia. So right now we're looking at, this is Crater Rock right here. This is the Devil's Kitchen. We look straight down. The satellite image was taken looking straight down. I'm going to go over to what's called the Black Spider. And I've seen some stuff over there. I'm really curious about getting photographs of that. And if we go to the top, if we go right to the top of Mout Hood, when these people are mountain climbing to go to the summit, get the orientation proper. Okay, now I'm kind of oriented. Okay, so here's Crater Rock. The mountain climbers will come up Hog's Back right there, and they'll go up in through the pearly gates. The pearly gates are to the left and to the right, and from there they go to the summit. The summit is actually over here. I don't know why it's got this buildup. It's possible that this is, you know, it's possible the summit at Mout Hood is now here and no longer over farther to the east because everything has, the avalanches and stuff. And what happened in the past is you had people coming up here, and then they would have this cornice. The cornice is an overhang of snow that overhangs. And when people try to go to the highest point, that highest point is actually a cornice. It's just snow, and it will break off, and these that'll cause people to fall down on the north side of Mount Hood. And I've had some very old photographs where I found bodies piled up on what they call the spider. The spider is a climbing surface the mountain climbers like to climb on. And I believe it's this entire surface right here. And what I found that was odd was right at the top of the spider, that's called the black spider, you'll find bodies up in here that have fallen off of the summit of Mount Hood, most likely through the what's called a ridge well, the same thing as a tree well. You can look that up, and a lot of times snowboarders will be found in the summer when the snow melts, and they'll find bodies right up next to a tree upside down that were down in the snow well, what was called a tree well, where they're upside down with the snowboard at the top, and their body's basically upside down, but when it melts out, they find them in the summer. But on the ridge well, it's the same thing, where the snow actually falls away from the mountain as it melts and recedes, and the sublimation causes the snow and the ice to shrink. It separates away from the mountain, and then when the snow falls, maybe a couple of weeks later after that, it will cover that up and make it like a trap door. And so you'll find remains up here. And there have been hikers that said that they were with a hiking party, and they had friends with them, like maybe 5 people, and they turned around, and the guy that was standing right there just disappeared. And it's most likely they fall into these ridge wells, or the cornice breaks off. And I found a lot of bodies over here on the north side, and we might actually see some. Yeah, there's something right here. Couple of legs. There's an arm. Looks very suspicious. It doesn't look like rocks. And we have to understand that the photograph was taken looking straight down from a satellite. So if I want to eliminate that distortion, I have to look down from the same perspective. Yeah, this right here looks like some type of body. There's the head, there's the shoulders, there's the arms, there's the right hand, there's the knee. And this thing has been, the temperature had gone up above 50 degrees, so he's kind of darkened. There's no more flesh tones. Here's another body right there. In fact, this is all human remains, and you can see that when the sun hits this, the temperature is greater than the surrounding areas, and you'll see that it falls away from the snow and ice, because the decomposing matter will burn. It'll heat up like leaves heating up. And then when the ravens get a hold of this stuff, it'll disappear, because they like to, go up here as a food source and take care of these. Anyway, so this is the fall. This is the fall line from the north side of Mount Hood, where people come up here, and there's this. It's not an exact one-to-one with the shape of the cornice and the shape of Google Earth. Do you see how this tip is right here? It basically distorted it. This was actually a cornice. You see this tip right here? This would have been the cornice that will break off when people climb this, and it'll stick out and go way up above. And so the mountain climber will think that he's not all the way up to the top, and they'll climb all the way out onto this. And again, it's distorted, but this would have been up here, this tip. So you have to know how to interpret these images that are not the actual physical three-dimensional shape that Google is trying to interpolate is not matching up with the image. and I'm trying to interpolate it as I'm looking at it. It's a little bit distorted, but right here is going to be where it's going to break off. And if you go down from there, you'll find there's the bodies right there, and they're all piled up. And you can see, again, like the part that's going to melt away is going to be where the body heats up because it's decomposing matter. It's going to be at a higher temperature than the surrounding areas. And so you'll see it fall away. Like right in here, notice how the shape falls away from the snow and the ice, or it melts away, like, and then there's the head, there's the arm, and we've got like maybe a shoulder. This thing's all completely mangled because as people fall, their body and bone's gonna break, and then you have rock fall that comes down maybe a year later and just completely annihilates that corpse that's been sitting there. And we go down further and you can see fragments of bodies, and it doesn't look like we're looking at rocks. You know, and you have to go by these shapes. And right here you see how this, whatever this is separated away from the surrounding frozen parts, leaving this cavity. So we have a difference in temperature there, and that usually occurs when you have decomposing matter. And it's absolutely hazardous. And the thing is, people come up here they come in here from Germany, they come in from Europe. Nobody knows they're up there. Their family back home in Europe doesn't know where to look for them. Here looks like we got two parallel lines. You can see how it's separating out from the snow, meaning that the temperature is hotter. Two parallel lines, and then we got them joined together here by something, which would be probably where the torso would be located. Notice there's nothing down here, but there is something above. And my plan is to get out here with my CPC 11-inch telescope, and I'm going to be at, let's say, in order to see the black spider, you kind of have to be, there's a road right here, or the highway. There it is, Highway 35. And the problem is, if I try to set my telescope up down here, this mountain's going to be in my way. It might be in my way, but let me back up a little bit. So when I start my day, I'm going to be out in the morning shooting, as the sunrise, I'm going to be shooting the black spider. And, or any place that I can see, and it's got to be like, I think it's 10 degrees from the true north, and I got to be along that line because that's where people will fall. Because it's the fall line off of the summit when that cornice breaks. So if I back up here, what's the beautiful thing about my setup right now is I've got this CPC 11-inch astronomical telescope, and that allows me to go up here. Okay, in fact, what my plan was to go to Little John Snow Park. I could actually come out here, and there's a nice big parking lot, and it would allow me to set up my equipment right here very comfortably. And from that location, as you can see the top of Mout Hood. I don't need to see the full extent of Mout Hood. I just need to see the top, because that's where these bodies will fall, and that'll be in the sunrise. So that'll be about between 6 and 7 a.m. I can photograph this, and I'll be taking video recordings of that. I might even go up before sunrise and use a green laser, because that allows me to get even sharper images. Because a lot of times what you don't see on Google Earth is there's some crevices, like right in here will be very shadowy if the sunrise will allow this to be like very shadowy, and so using a green laser will overcome that. It'll also overcome atmospheric aberrations, and then as the Earth rotates, the sun will illuminate more and more up in here. And so what I will do is get on a ski lift at in the summer they charge $20 for a ski lift for the Magic Mile. That will take away 1 mile from my distance, because if I try to shoot this from the parking lot, that's 3 miles, and I can get closer, more pixels per centimeter is what I'm looking for. So I get to the top of the Magic Mile, and from that location I will be able to see the fall line. And the hot spot where I want to examine is right here. This Bergschrund is where bodies will fall into, and they'll go all the way down. After this thaws out, the bodies will slowly fall down and end up down in these gullies. When all this snow is melted, there will be these gullies. And looking over from the top of Palmer Ski Lift, I can't determine exactly where I saw this, but it was either down in here. The thing is, it couldn't have been down in here, because when you look up at a 45-degree angle, this saddle is in the way of your view. So I think what I was seeing, because when I'm shooting up at a 45-degree angle and photographing, was these gullies right here. Let me zoom in. Trying to zoom in at this location right here. And there were gullies that were mud, and these bodies were completely covered in mud. And there was like a mother and son. But I'm seeing more, because the body that I found, it was face down and it was oriented like this. And I was looking across the backside, so the ass end was up. And you could see the perfect shape of his ass end, backside. It was like a female that weighed about 150 pounds, about 5'6", 150 pounds, a little bit overweight, very husky female. And then there was what looked like a younger person right next to them. And I think that this is confirmation of the photograph I already had, because what I had was the torso, front end of the torso, and I think this is it right here. And that's about in the exact same location in these gullies that I saw with my own photography. And things do get distorted a little bit because we're shooting, because the Google image is trying to overlay on top of a three-dimensional shape. And you can see right here, there's something. You see where you got these two holes together, and then it looks like a skull, but it's way too big. It's like the proportions are not right. But what tends to happen is in heat waves, you'll have these undulations in heat waves, and it'll actually magnify a microscopic area like 20 times. So I know that this, when you see stuff that seems to be out of proportion with the surrounding area, that's why you see that. And I've seen this in my videos of these from satellite imagery. My videos are not satellite imagery, but it has the same distortion characteristics because of the heat waves. That's what I'm trying to say. And here's another one right here. You can see the skull, the top of the skull. This one's elongated, and that's due to the, it could have been partly frozen, smashed down with tons of frozen ice, and then as the stuff falls out, it gets distorted, smashed down. Part of it's frozen to the ice, and the other part's frozen to the ground, and you'll have these smashed out, distorted figures, and you kind of have to understand that. The thing is, it doesn't fit in with the surrounding area. You got something that just does not look like a rock. It looks like some type of matter. Almost looks alien. And that's due to this distortion that you can have. So this to me is very suspect. Looks like you got some shoulders right here. You've got some bones sticking out with the skin. You can see that right there. And then it looks like you've got hip bones right here. Emaciated hip bones, or these could be knees or feet. But this is looking like you've got places where body parts would be located. And again, this is a very good hot spot, because that's the fall line. When people fall from here, the degree angle is about 75 to 80 degrees slope right here. And this is where they transition from the hog's back. So you got 10,000 hikers a year coming up here. Then they transition over to the pearly gates, continue hiking on up. And sometimes they'll tie themselves with the other hikers in their team. And if one of them falls, they'll take them all down like bowling pins. And there's this, what's called a bergschrund. It's this big crevasse that opens up. And that's due to the receding of the snow and the ice. It will pull this ice back and cause this big gash right here. It's called a bergschrund. It's just a big crevasse. And it can cause people to fall down into it. And if it's during a sublimation period where the snow and the ice is shrinking and pulling away, that sublimation will cause fog, so nobody will be a witness to this, and so there won't be anybody coming up there rescuing them. They fall down in there, it's 50 feet deep, and as the snow melts, this 80 degree, 75 degree angle, the bodies will kind of recede and slowly fall down as the mud and the silt falls and oozes down as it melts, and the bodies will end up down here at a lower level. And so you'll see this right here, and you can see it. These could have been here 150 years. You got any time between the time that mountain climbers started, which was 150 years ago, and today, and then you eliminate all those years where they didn't have cell service or had spotty cell service. And even today, people are going up here from other countries. They're not filling out the guest book to say that they're there. They don't even know how to read English, and they're not. I've met these people. I've seen them go past these permit boxes, and they don't put their information there, so no one even knows they're up on that trail. And these people are coming in from other countries because they're practicing for K2. Some of them are coming in from Texas. The news had a report of these guys coming in they came in on the north side. They got caught in a storm. All three of them died. The guy made a phone call to his wife. And they were hiking up this side. Came in from Texas. And this mountain took him out. And I think they found, on a photograph, they found some of his, what they believe happened was that he, there's a glacier over here to the southeast corner, next to Y East. What they think happened was he went over here, put down his hiking gear, and jumped off, thinking he could land in the snow, and they never found him. Because it looked like that what they found was some hiking gear, and they think that that might have happened because he was either going to freeze to death, but he could lose altitude quickly if he just jumped off it, believing he could land in some soft snow. And I think that that's what happens to a lot of hikers. They panic, they jump off from high altitudes, thinking they can just fall in the soft snow, and they perish. And that was the last thing they saw. The airplane. Somebody from the airplane took a photograph. Those are the guys from Texas. Another guy was lost over here at, so we get our bearings. We're looking at the south side. That's Crater Rock right there. And we go over here. This is Castle Crags. Castle Crags. And it was a warehouse worker from Nike that went up to Castle Crags. And he was never seen again. But his plan was to get up into here. And if you look closely, you can see there are human remains all over Castle Crag. We zoom in here. Here's something right there. Let me back up a little bit. We got a head, we got two arms, we got shoulders. This guy's kind of sitting down. It looks like, and I see this in a lot of these, when I'm looking through this, the ground is constantly crumbling away, and it will reveal what's been buried there that had been covered up from avalanches, because it's constantly crumbling. Constant landslides. You can see where there's been landslides up in here. And as these landslides continue, they reveal things that are buried. Like right here, we got something looks like, you know, body parts. Here's another thing right here. We got a head, appendages, looks like a body right there. I'm seeing what looks like blue jeans. Something's different in color right there. So we got a couple bodies. This looks like a climbing party. And again, the question you have in your mind, how could there be so many people come in here from other countries practicing the K2 climb? Look at the 100 people summiting K2 with the Sherpas, and multiply that times 10, and those multiplying it times 10, those are the people that practice on these other mountains like Mout Hood. And so here's some bodies up in here that you're never going to see unless you have a laser beam that will illuminate that, because it's going to be dark most of the time. Hard to see that from the ground. We just happen to be able to see it because the satellite's looking down from the top. Here's some more, looks like some bodies. And where are we at? We're looking up into Luthard Collier, and this is Luthard Collier, cooler. It's some European word. I'm probably not pronouncing it, probably destroying the word. But anyway, this is a climbing route right here, hot spot. This right here is Castle Crags. This is the Crater Rock, and right here is Illumination Rock. This is Illumination Rock. So the mountain climbers, this is a known path. They'll come up here in between Illumination Rock and Castle Crags. They'll go right in between that right here. They'll cross straight over and then start their way up into Luthard Collier. It's an alternate climbing route. So there's potential for finding all kinds of human remains up in here. The other climbing route that's very, it's a known climbing route, is to come across, this is Crater Rock from Timberline Lodge. You come across right here, go right up. This is Old Chute. This is the Old Chute path. But another climbing route is to come up here to the left, and that is, this right here is a climbing route. So what I'm going to do if I get up to Magic Mile is I'm going to try to photograph this area very extensively, somewhere between the middle of September and the first week of October until the first snowfall. And even at the first snowfall, it's usually going to be a ½ an inch, which is a very good, helpful thing to help you see things that stand out from the mountains, because it'll actually help reveal shapes. And a lot of these bodies get covered with silt. They'll get covered with the surrounding dust and silt when the wind blows, and it'll be the exact same color as the surrounding areas. So it makes it difficult for it to stand out. And so when you get 1 inch of snowfall, that can help things to stand out a little bit. So if we go over here to where we have just a little bit of snow, you can see how it, like right here, you see how shapes are revealed that are standing out a little bit, like right here. Like this could be an arm and an elbow. This could be another one. This looks like this could be a foot right here. And it just got a little bit of snow on it, and it causes it to collect. Here's another, right over here I noticed something else. We're looking straight down, like how the image was actually taken. You can see all kinds of, you see this lineup of bodies right here. Now this is what's called a ridge well. The reason you have a stack of bodies, like all this along here, is human remains. You can see all the arms and legs. Now what happens is, if you do a Google search for ridge well, actually you probably won't find anything. But if you do a search for tree well, that's where a lot of snowboarders will get caught, and skiers will get caught upside down right at a tree, because they'll end up upside down because there will be no snow right up against the tree trunk. The same thing happens on the edge of these ridges on a mountain. So if a mountain climber is going up there, it'll have just this trapdoor covering of snow, and you could fall down in that, and it causes them to get trapped up in there. So that's why you'll find them along these ridges right on the edge. Here's another one. It looks like we've got a head. Let me zoom in so you can see this better. I'm seeing an arm. There's a hand with some fingers. This is the right hand with fingers, the left hand with fingers, the torso, that's been completely smashed because of rock fall and debris that's constantly changing, ice fall. There's the head, there's the shoulders. Okay, that's not a rock. This is just decomposing matter. And that color is because the temperature had gone up to 52 degrees, and rotting meat is going to eventually turn black. And there's another body right here. This one is a bit newer, probably still frozen. It's probably this year. That's why it's a different color. It's not black. See this one right here? This one's several years old because it's black, many seasons where it's been above freezing. And then this one right here is probably a recent body because it still retains its flesh tones. And we've got, I can make out one finger, and there's a hand right there. This body is on its back, and what we have here is the neck. A lot of times the necks are usually, and the heads and the skulls are usually eventually pulled off the body, and it's rare that you actually see them intact with the body. But because we are at the top of a ridge, we're having limited amount of rock fall because you're not going to have anything falling because this is at the top of the peak. You're going to tend to have complete intact bodies. So we have, you can find all the body parts here. We've got the knees, the legs, we have a foot, we have a left arm, we have the elbow. It looks like it's almost broken. The arm is broken above the elbow because the proportions are a little distorted. Okay, so there's the knees. In fact, it looks like, again, this is above the knees, probably broken. The legs are broken above the knees because look how long the extended below the knee part is. So the legs are broken above the knees, which would explain why this is a little longer, and the knee portion is in the wrong place. It's a little too high, but it could be. Yeah, I'm going to settle on that. Then the other thing, this is the elbow or a broken arm above the elbow. And we have the forearm here. We have the right arm's there, the left arm's there. The rest of the body's here. It looks like this guy was wrapped up. He's got a coat on because you see how there's the shoulders are not defined. So it's possible he's got a jacket. He's wearing a jacket. I see what looks like a skull that's been separated from the body, and then and it's because of all this snow and ice melting, and things move around because you have tonnage of snow and ice. It builds up on this, and so it's in the first year of separating with all that. And if the ravens get on this, the stuff's going to be taken away. It's going to be really difficult to see this from down below. So if I try to get a photograph, I'm down here at Paradise Park. I'm shooting up at a 45-degree angle. I may not be able to see this. Okay, because we're looking down at like a fissure down in the rocks to see these bodies. There's like a crack up in here. But over time, this stuff does tend to fall away, and then you'll get fragments. You'll get fragments falling away, and as you can see, there's some fragments that have fallen away. Like it looks like some type of something non-rock. It looks like matter. And then you got the flesh tone. So this is relatively new. So this has been below freezing for at least 1 to 2 years. But once the temperature rises above 50 degrees, this will eventually turn black once it's rotted, like rotted meat. The other things I look for. Oh, we got some legs that are hanging over the edge right here. Here's an arm or a leg. The other thing I look for is when the ravens get on something that's thawing out, you'll get crimson. Because frozen meat that thaws out it will bleed, and the ravens will scatter that and spread it around. And then you'll get these crimson colors, like right here. See, it's a little darker right in here. See this dark red, almost like rust color? What'll happen is there will be human remains up in, like this could be the human remains right there. And the ravens will come in and break off a hunk of the meat they'll break off an arm and they'll go down and they'll feed on it, and the blood will stain the rocks. So I look for those. And notice that crimson color is only down in the low points, because a liquid is going to go to the low points. So that's another thing I look for. And I've noticed these streaks of crimson. And I got to answer the question, is that a mineral or is that red? The streak was way too on surfacey kind of a thing. So that's one of the things I'm like very interested in. So if I had a drone that could go up there and take samples, it could be confirmed. But anyway, we're now looking at Mout Hood from, I believe we're at the Sandy Glacier right here. Yeah. So this is a reed glacier that I can see really well from Lolo Pass Road with my 11-inch telescope. I'm going to be going out there in the next couple days to test out my equipment. But anyway, that's all I got for this recording. I'm going to stop it here.